If you don't know me yet, you're going to find out I love efficiency. I was inspired by one of my favorite creators, Nutty, over on Twitch, and he's on YouTube. Has a lot of fantastic videos about OBS tutorials and things like that. But Nutty had created a Make Me a TikTok channel point redemption that I thought was just absolutely fantastic. And it really actually inspired me to think about how I approach creating my own short form content for YouTube Shorts, for TikTok, Facebook Reels, Instagram Reels, whatever that may be, that vertical format. I wanted to share how I created this to not only make my stuff easier to do, but to help you make yours way easier as well. Let's show you how you can make your short form content real quick in OBS Studio with one plugin and just a simple way of setting it up. So normally when you clip videos, they're going to look like this, and it's going to be the standard video format that everybody's used to seeing. How do you get OBS to clip into a vertical content while you're streaming? It's actually way simpler than you would think. So one thing you're going to need is the OBS Studio plugin Source Record, which I'm going to link in the description down below. Now, when you click that link, you're going to wind up here where it says Source Record, and you're going to need to just come over, hit the download. So you can choose any one of these. The Windows installer can make it extremely easy to put in. Me, I like to download just the files and drag and drop them. So you'll want to click one of those. Once it's downloaded, you'll see that it has the data and OBS plugins folder. So what you're going to need to do is extract that into the folder that contains your OBS. And as you can see, it has a data folder and an OBS plugins folder into it. And all you have to do is just click and hit OK, and it's installed. Now that you have Source Record installed and it's ready to go, now we need to get to setting up how to make this work. So to do that, we're going to be in OBS Studio, and in a completely new scene, you're going to want to add your webcam, and we'll name this webcam, put it on the camera like this. Aha! You're also going to need to add your game capture or whatever you need to put into the background. So for me, I'm going to use my PS5 and click that, and my gameplay is there. Yay! And then I just got to take my webcam and put it over the gameplay, just that way we're ready to go on that. Assuming you have a 1920 by 1080 canvas, that should be pretty standard, your normal way of streaming on Twitch, YouTube. You're going to want to have to edit this down to the size that will match that vertical format that's 1080 by 1920. There's a little bit of cropping we got to do with OBS. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to hide my webcam. Now, the reason we're going to hide the webcam for now is because you're going to want to make whatever's in the background the size you need it to be to make sure that everything's going to align right. And let me show you what I mean by this. So to get this to be sized right, what we're going to need to do is go to whatever's going to be in the background, your gameplay most likely. You're going to need to go up to Transform and then over to Edit Transform. When you're in the Edit Transform, you want to make sure that this is still staying the same. You don't have to change any of this, but what you do need to change is the crop left, and you need to set that to 656 pixels. And you need to adjust the right to 656 pixels. That's going to center your gameplay and size it to what you need it to be for vertical content. Once you've done that and you've hit OK, now this is sized the way you want it to be. And if you need to make adjustments, you can. Like if you wanted to make it a little smaller, you can do so. Now, if you do decide to shrink it down and make sure things are under it like I typically do, you need to pay attention to how it's getting sized. So there is another way that you can actually approach this instead of doing the crop down like that and make sure that all the gameplay gets in there. And that is to create basically a template of what that size is going to be. The easiest way to make sure you can do this and make sure everything fits is add a color source. You don't have to name it anything special. The width would be 608 and it would be by 1080 and hit OK. This can act as a template then. This will tell you what the size is, because if we bring this down below the game capture, you'll see that it disappeared. Now, when we grab the game capture, we can see, like if we drag it up that far. Then we can go to transform, hit the edit transform, and we'll just lower the cropping down. To make your life a little easier, you can put the position right there at 0. And here I wound up where the sizing is a little weird, but the cropping comes to 553 on each side. This way it remains completely centered. Now, what you need to do is uncover your camera, and I'm back. We're gonna go ahead and drag it down and move it. I'm gonna move mine to the bottom, align it like so. And now, so this is set up to maybe the format I want it to look like. Now, here's the fun part. If you record as it sits right now, it's going to capture in the same 1920 by 1080 format because you're trying to capture the entire screen. So how do you get this to recognize that you're trying to capture just this size, this vertical format? To make sure this happens correctly the way you want, you need to make sure you're using the grouping in order to make sure everything that's in that group is the only thing getting recorded. So what I'm going to do, we can hide the color source and get rid of it, but I'm going to select both of these by hitting shift and clicking both. Right click, go up to group selected items, and now I'm going to call this group my TikTok format. Now, what gets to happen is no matter where I move this, it's all together. It stays as I want it. The reason we are grouping these together is that way when we put the source record on the folder, that the source record is only going to record what's in that folder, and it's going to record it to the size that we have actually made everything instead of recording the entire scene. So now we're going to enable the source record by right-clicking TikTok format, the folder we created, and we're going to go to filters. When you're in the filters, you'll go down to the plus icon, and you're going to move up to where it says source record. And I will call this the TikTok replay record. Once this is on, this is where we have to determine our settings. So the record mode, if you wanted with source record, you can have it go as long as the eye is enabled. You can always be recording anytime the eye is enabled, or anytime you're streaming, it'll start recording, or anytime you're recording, streaming or recording, or if you enable the virtual camera. We're not going to choose this for clipping, but if you wanted to record everything in this format, you can do so by choosing these. You can choose it to wherever you want these things to get saved. The file formatting, I usually leave it like this. If you want to make sure that it doesn't corrupt, you can put it in MKV format. However, that means you will have to convert it after you're done clipping it. What I typically do is I actually do put it in an MP4 format, which is what usually gets uploaded to YouTube and TikTok and Facebook. Down here where it says replay buffer, you're going to want to click that. This is going to enable that part where it will save however many seconds of gameplay you wanted to clip. A very important note with source record is right now the max you can clip is 30 seconds. So because source record can only do 30 seconds, we're going to set it to 30 seconds and that's good to go. Now, if you have the ability to stream from OBS from TikTok, you can actually set that here, setting a server and the key. This would let you actually stream this form of TikTok to TikTok. So I usually click the different audio. For me, track 2 is my Twitch VOD track. That's where all my gameplay audio and my microphone will go into, but not any music or some things that could possibly trigger a copyright strike. Next, you're going to need to set up your encoder settings. If you want to use the NVENC encoder for creating your clips on this, there is something you really need to understand. NVENC is limited to 3 encoding sessions at a time, which means if you're streaming, that is 1 encoding session. If you're also recording your stream, that's the 2nd encoding session. That would mean that this replay buffer would then be the 3rd encoding session. For me, I typically like to use the NVENC encoder for a lot of things, but when it comes to doing this format and using this as a replay buffer, I don't mind using my CPU. So I actually use the X264 and have had a little bit better results from this when it comes to stability. Now, when you set this up, you're gonna wanna match the bit rate of whatever your stream output is, which for me is 6,000 kilobits. On the keyframe interval, I have mine set to 2. I do the very fast CPU usage because it really does a very good job, specifically in this format, because we have shrunk it down. Other than that, it's set up, it's ready to go. The next thing you're gonna wanna make sure you do is go into your settings, go to hotkeys. You're gonna need to scroll down to where it shows you what you named that filter. And in there, you're gonna need to create a hotkey. So here we're going to use Control, Alt, and numpad number 1 as my method of saving this replay. This way, anytime I hit that combination, I immediately have that clip. Now, the good news is you can also use your replay buffer, your normal replay buffer, and have it set to the same time, and you can still capture the 1920 by 1080 format, and then you can have a clip in both broadcasting way as well as having your vertical content, so you can have both replay buffers enabled. And this way, if you have both the regular replay buffer enabled and the source record replay buffer, you can then set these to the same, and this will actually then trigger both. Now, you're going to see this warning right here that says the hotkey is shared by another action. That's okay. It should still work just the same. But if you want to set them differently, you can, and then just create a hotkey on maybe your Stream Deck or Touch Portal or however you have that triggered. And that's really all you need to do to set it up, and you can customize it and put more things in that folder. Like if you needed to have your logo there for maybe a watermark, you can put the logo in, size it how you need to, and then make sure you drop it into the same folder that your gameplay and your camera is in. You can adjust these however you want, and for me, using a green screen for my streams, this actually is fantastic because then I don't have to worry about the gameplay being still behind me, and then I'm trying to break up the gameplay, and it looks terrible. I mean, look at it. It's horrible. It just doesn't look right. This method gives me a much better opportunity to create a cleaner, more appealing look when I do my vertical content. Now, there are a couple issues that I do need to mention that come with this. One, source record is not exactly completely stable. What I mean by this is there are a couple coding issues that kind of happen between OBS and source record. One of those being that sometimes your clips are not always going to save like they're supposed to. In which case, what you would have to do is then go into that filter, enable it, and then disable it, and then enable it again, and then disable it, and like work with it. Or you have to change a setting in there and then set it back to basically reset the problem. Another important note I need to put in here is there is a audio issue that can happen where your audio is way delayed from your video. This typically has happened to me because the filter is enabled before the replay buffer is. What you'll have to do is go in, make sure that the eye is turned off before your replay buffer is enabled, because if you don't, it's going to create this weird audio sync delay. So you'd have to make sure that you have things set up to where when you start this replay buffer, you go to the filter, then you turn on the replay record. And when you do this, the audio sync is less likely to happen. It's usually a little bit more stable. Oh, and with that, you'll also see that my OBS crashed when I did that. That does happen too. Like I said, source record can be a little finicky sometimes, and sometimes you have to adjust how you've set things up and find the right combination that works for you. Sometimes it's the way your encoder's set up. Maybe it's too straining on your PC and it crashes OBS. You have to spend a lot of time figuring out which problem is occurring, and it can be a bit of a headache. But once you get it down and you know where the problems lie and you know where these issues come from, it makes it much easier to prepare for it, and actually way easier then to make this content. Now, I'm hoping Exceldro does get around to updating source record to be a little bit more stable in terms of using it in its various features. I'm sure Exceldro will. The guy is just absolutely amazing when he makes plugins, and when he updates them very well. Trust me, if it's made by Exceldro, it's going to be good quality. You'll experience some bugs, but I guarantee it's much better than most of the stuff out there. But that's pretty much how you do it. It's a very, very easy way to create vertical content in a way that's just much easier to present. This actually did lead me into actually creating my own version of Nutty's Make Me a TikTok, and I have recreated that. I would love to make a video on that someday, but there are still some kinks I'm working out, specifically when the source filter is enabled to record and then it turns off. Sometimes the video doesn't finish, and then you have to re-enable the filter and turn it back off, and then it won't work again, and then you have to adjust a setting, and reset the setting back, and then it's fine again. I'm still trying to figure out how to work around that issue and set it up in a way. Maybe one day I'll go into explaining how I've made mine work when I can get it to be more stable. But for now, I hope that this method of clipping makes your life just a little bit easier when it comes to trying to create that short form content, not having to go to something like Streamladder or having to edit it yourself, such as in DaVinci Resolve or whatever you're using for video editing. If this video helped you, please leave a like. Give me a comment. Let me know if this helped you out. If you have any issues, I'm more than happy to answer them. If you want to see more things that help you create efficiency or give you ideas on what you can do on your live streams, make sure you're hitting the subscribe button, because I guarantee you I've got more stuff coming out and a lot more ideas that I'm going to be throwing out and how I do things and just lots of fun stuff. All right, that's it for me. Happy streaming, y'all. Hope those clips work for you.